What's up, fisher people? Are you looking to take a trip, but you're not exactly sure when you want to go? Maybe you want to know when the best time is to catch the biggest numbers of fish, or maybe you're really looking for a few big fish and you want to know when to do that. Or maybe there's a certain presentation you like to use. Maybe you like to pitch jigs and cast, or maybe you prefer trolling bottom bouncers or trolling crankbaits. Well, if you stick around, we'll address all of that and more in this video. First fish of the morning. Not a bad one.
Just fired up, perky.
Look at this fish. Let's see. Ooh, that was a pig. Before we get into it too far, I just wanted to say, if you do enjoy this content, consider subscribing to the channel. And if you like this video, if you find it helpful, also hit the like button. The more of that you do, the easier it is for other people to find this video and other content that we produce, and that will greatly help out our business. And we hope that you get some value out of it in turn as well. I will say that I'm specifically talking about Lake Sakakawea here, but a lot of this will apply to walleye fishing almost anywhere because they kind of go through the same sort of seasonal cycles. Things may subtly shift around, the periods may be shorter or longer, earlier or later, but this kind of applies across the board if you're talking walleye fishing. Okay, so we're gonna break this down chronologically from the beginning of the year. Right away at ice out, probably your best time of the year to catch the biggest fish in the system is before they start laying eggs. The biggest fish are going to be the females, and that's the time of year where their movement patterns are gonna be the most predictable, and they're probably gonna be the hungriest. And you have your best chance at catching a true trophy fish from ice out until maybe the first week in May. Now I will say that this is predominantly gonna be some catch and release fishing. We're not gonna keep a lot of big females full of eggs because if we do that, we won't have any fish around for the future. So if you're looking to catch a few really nice fish and you're okay letting them go, this may be the best time of year for you. It's predominantly gonna include shallow fishing, probably a lot of jig pitching, and it might include a little bit of trolling as well. Eventually, the bite post-spawn starts to pick back up, but it takes a while for the fish to recuperate, and they also start doing their migration downstream. But once the water temps start to get up into near 60 degrees, the bite really starts to pick up again. It can be a lot of males at that point, but at some point we can also start finding some of the big post-spawn females as well and pick a few of those off. Probably not as many as we would have pre-spawn, but it can still be done. Again, this is the best time of year for super shallow fishing, jig pitching, minnow fishing, that kind of thing. Sometimes we're catching fish up in like 2 feet of water pitching into shore, especially on some rock and some gravel. So if that's your thing, the best time to do that is late May rolling into early June. As things progress into early summer, that whole June time frame is going to be kind of a transition from pitching shallow into those shorelines to maybe fishing 10 to 15 feet of water. You can still get a few of the big fish before they start really moving out, and you can also get a lot of good numbers of fish. This is the most popular time that most people choose to come, is the month of June and then into early July. Bigger crowds and a little busier lake, but lots of numbers of fish. As we roll into the later part of July and then into August, the fish will finally start moving out deeper. We might be fishing anywhere from 20 feet of water to sometimes 40 or 50. And if we're fishing more than 30 feet of water, we're probably gonna keep everything that we catch because of barotrauma issues from bringing fish up from the depths that don't have time to adjust those air bladders. So that's not gonna be the best time for catch and release fishing. We're gonna be looking to keep what we catch. Summertime is bottom bouncer crawler time. So if you like pulling bottom bouncers and spinners with night crawlers and trolling that for walleyes, late June through middle of September is definitely your time period. The tough part about getting into the heat of summer is the fact that if you get one of those days where it's really hot and really flat calm, things can be tough. But as long as you get a little bit of overcast and or a little bit of wind and chop on the water, things can still be pretty good. And this is probably the best time of year if somebody wants to catch really huge numbers of fish. When you hear about 100 walleye days out on the lake, it's probably happening in the middle to late part of July and even into August. And if the walleyes aren't biting, there's a good chance that we can get some pike in the middle of the heat, and we might do some decent smallmouth bass fishing as well. If there's a tough time of the year to fish, it's probably that late summer to fall transition. Early and middle of September can be a little bit tough, but it all depends on the day, the year, and the type of weather conditions. Fish will still be super, super deep more than likely, and they're gonna be that way for a while. So it can be harder to get on fish, but it can still be done. And a tough day at Sakakawea, honestly, is still pretty good compared to a lot of other places that I've fished. So I would say there's not any time of year I would recommend not coming, but if there's a tough period, this is probably the toughest. As you get towards the end of September, we start looking forward towards fall fishing. And when the water temps start pushing down, fish start to notice and start making those transitions and start feeding a little more heavily again. And we can get into an early fall bite, which can be pretty darn good. Still gonna be a lot of deep fishing, but the bite's gonna start picking back up, and we're gonna start to see more numbers again. Then when things really start to cool down, when you get probably more into October, like the middle of October through the end of October, post-fall turnover, once the water turns over, I'm talking water temps below 50 degrees probably. That's when your second chance of the year to catch the biggest fish starts to come about. At that point, you'll start to see females with eggs again and just really big fat bellies because they're really putting on the weight to make it through the winter. The fish start to move around a little bit and settle into some of their fall locations. We're still probably fishing fairly deep, but you will start to see some fish push up into those shallower depths, especially early in the morning and late in the evening. We'll be doing probably a combination of trolling or a lot of rip jigging wrap style fishing in that sort of 20 to 30 foot depth range. And then, like I said, sometimes, especially if the wind is blowing into a shoreline, getting fish tight up onto shore again. Not quite as tight as they would have been way up in the spring, but they're not gonna be, you're not gonna have to fish 50, 60 feet of water anymore like you were in the heat of the summer, early fall transition time period. Hopefully that gives you a better idea of when you might want to plan a trip, depending on what you want to do and what you might be able to expect. Obviously, fish can be finicky and they can do weird things, and a lot of this depends on weather patterns, water temperatures, air temperatures, whether or not you get a storm, that kind of stuff. But big picture, a lot of these seasonal trends tend to hold pretty true, and it should give you a good baseline to determine when it is you might want to come up and make a trip. We'll see you next time.